We're going to be covering object as well as the object literal and creating objects and also adding in methods within the objects, how we can have the different functions, either using the function with the keyword function and using this to reference the parent object or referencing the parent object using the arrow format. So listen, we're going to be creating some objects. So there's several ways to create objects with JavaScript. So we'll go over them, and as well we're going to be covering the object literals and why it's best practice in order to use object literals in order to create objects. .index file that we're using so that we can output the content within the web browser. I've got the console open at the bottom. So let's go ahead and we're going to create some objects. So the first object that we're going to be creating is going to be using the object. This is going to generate a new object that we can use. I'll output it into the console. So right now it's just an empty object. In order to add content into the object, we can use either the dot notation or we can use the bracket notation. So either one will add items into the object, and this will give us our named pair values. So we've got the key name as well as the value that's going to be associated with each one of the keys. And you can add several different items into the object, specifying the object. And I'll do this one as a bracket notation so that we have a little bit of variety for the content that we're creating. And this one is also going to be a different string value. So one of the easiest ways to create objects is to use an object literal. So if you do need to add in a function or a method within the object, so if this wanted to get the full name, and that was the function that we were creating, so we'd use the function keyword. And then here we would return back and output into the console. And on this would be outputting a string value for the object content. So let's select the object values, and we've got a first and a last. So we'll pull them together. So for the object full name, so if I want to get the response back for full name, I can invoke the object and we get the value being returned back. So instead of logging it into the console, what I'll do is I'm going to return back the results for the full name. And then within the object, we're going to invoke the function in the console and output the result for full name. So that will result within the console. So that's returning back the first and last. So we're able to use this within the object as we're constructing the object. So using the keyword, the function keyword as an anonymous function allows us to select the object properties because this keyword is used in order to associate with the parent object. So the other way to do this in this object literals, and that's going to be assigning the value. So you can create the object just like this, where you're creating the object, and this is just creating a blank object. And you would have an option as well to add in the first, last, and the function the same way, structure that we did within the last one, and then running the full name by invoking the full name function would return back the same result. And when you are creating the object, when you are using the object literal, the easiest way to do that is to just assign all of the values at the time when you're creating it. So instead of separating it and declaring the value with the equal sign, assign the values to that object property. And we can do the same for the full name, and the result here will be the function. So this provides us a cleaner way in order to construct the object content. So also you can add in additional functions. So if we had another one that's called full, and I'm going to do that with the arrow function this time. Show you what the difference here is going to be. With the arrow, we're going to be simply returning it, so we can do it on the same line. And let's see what happens when we select object 2 and invoke full. So we get returned back undefined. And the reason that we're getting undefined is that when we're using the arrow format, it's not associating this to the parent object. So that's where we're returning back undefined. So if you want to use this, you do need to include the keyword, the function keyword, in order to return it back and associate it with the object. Use the object name. That will result in returning back the object values that are associated because it's assigning it to the main object. And then that will return the same result that we had were the object and the full name result. So let's output that last result into the console, and now we should see the same result being output. So the best practice is to use the object literal, and if you are declaring variables or values or methods within the object,